Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Wikipedia world. And I am Abhinay Gupta. And again, today we will be continuing with the winding up of the companies, right? And referring to the provisions of the Companies Act 1956. Okay, with that? So far we have already dealt with the creditors' voluntary winding up. Prior to that, we dealt with the members' voluntary winding up. And prior to that, also, we have dealt with the compulsory winding up of the company, right? So with this we have already completed more than 65-70% of the chapter, and the important topics, right, and the important concepts and the procedures of the winding up have already been covered. So what are we going to do in today's lecture? Yes, I know you have already read the caption below. So yes, we will be covering the distinction between the members voluntary winding up and the creditors voluntary winding up, right? So although when we were discussing about the concepts of the members voluntary winding up, or when we were discussing about the concepts of the creditors voluntary winding up, I have already shown you the distinction during the class, right? With each topic I have made an effort to compare the topic which was done previously in the class, right? So if there was something that related to the compulsory winding up, we had referred to it in the lecture, and if there was something that was related to the members voluntary winding up along with the creditors voluntary winding up, even that point of distinction was shown in the class, right? But in this lecture we are trying to summarize all those points in one place so that it is in your mind and you understand what is the basic line of difference between the members voluntary winding up and the creditors voluntary winding up, right? So most of you must have already felt that difference and understood it, but for the rest who have not, we will draw a clear line of distinction between the two, right? So we start with the lecture today, which would be the distinction between the members and the creditors voluntary winding up. So we'll have two blocks for you. One will be the block for the members voluntary winding up and the other for the creditors voluntary winding up, and point wise we will go on to check what is the difference. So basically there are 7 major differences that we will be covering, right? Otherwise, apart from those 7 differences, the entire procedure of the members voluntary winding up is similar to the creditors voluntary winding up, and I would say the reverse. The procedure of creditors voluntary winding up would be similar to the procedure of members voluntary winding up, right? So to start with, the first point of difference that we see is that the members voluntary winding up, that is the procedure that can be taken forward only by the company which is solvent, right? As we have seen while we were discussing the concept of members voluntary winding up, that the directors are required to deliver the declaration of solvency, right? And why did they declare it? Because the company itself was solvent. And how do we conclude that the company is always solvent in members voluntary winding up? Look, if you look at the scenario, right, when the members voluntary winding up is conducted, then we saw that there are 3 basic conditions. For 2 of them you pass the ordinary resolution, and for the rest you pass the special resolution. So when do you pass the ordinary resolution? That is when you have already been provided in the article the cause for your winding up, which means either that company was established for the whole and sole purpose to fulfill any of the objective which was specified in the article of association of that company, right? So as soon as that object is over, the mere cause of existence of the company comes to an end, right? The company was incorporated for a specific task, the task is over, now the company needs to be dissolved, the company needs to be wound up before dissolving, right? And when, just think, when the company already knows that yes, after this objective of mine is accomplished, I will have to wind up the company, so the company will try and maintain as much loan or as much debt as possible that the company would be able to pay off immediately if they want winding up. So the company would not go beyond its limitation, beyond the total amount of assets or the cash or bank what they have to pay off the liability. They won't go on for excess of liability, they won't go on for indebtedness, because they know they need to wind up, right? And one more thing you need to understand is, when any company is incorporated for a specific task and they have specified it into their article, even the lenders in the market will be aware of it. They know that yes, this company is here for a specific task, so nobody would go ahead to give out more loan to the company or more advance to the company or anything. Like, the creditors will not let you have a credit period or the credit limit beyond a certain point, because they know that okay, once you are done, you will be out of the market. So even they are at risk, right? So generally these companies, they do not take a lot of loan, but even if they take, then the providers of the finance, right, or the creditors, they are aware of the position of the company, right? So basically these type of companies are generally solvent when they go on for their winding up, right? But yeah, in certain situations, in exceptional situations, when they go insolvent, then we convert it into creditors voluntary winding up. But that is not a very common phenomena, if you understand. The common phenomena, if you see, is that the member voluntary winding up starts with members voluntary winding up and ends as a members voluntary winding up itself. But yeah, in some situation when the declaration of solvency goes wrong, we convert it into creditors voluntary winding up, and that is not a very common phenomena. It is a rare phenomena, right? And so on the other hand, the creditors voluntary winding up is basically done by the insolvent company, right? So this, try to understand, members voluntary winding up is actually voluntary. They know they need to wind up because their task is complete, right? Their objective, their aim is complete, their duration for existence is complete, something has happened, right? Or the members think, okay, we have done very well, now we want to wind up and everything is going very well, we have surplus fund, let us close it on a good note. But why do we need the creditors voluntary winding up? It is when the company is not performing. So if there is a lot of capital invested in the company and the market value of its investment and the operations that it has undertaken, that has degraded the capital, that means the recoverability of the capital is not appropriate. And they know that okay, even if we are struggling, even if we are trying to sustain in the market, we are accumulating losses, right? We are not going into the profitable direction. That is why they wind up, right? If they know that okay, in future we are going to the positive direction, we are going to the profitable zone, then they will not wind up. They will try to continue and recover the losses that they have made, right? Because the company is once formulated, right, and unless and until they are formulated for a specific task or specific time duration, the company generally tries to go on and on. So it is a law of average that they try to meet up. That okay, in the initial period, obviously they will have some losses. It takes 3-4 years to come to the break-even position, and after that they start gaining the profit. So if any point of time the company knows that in future they are going to recover their losses, then they will not wind up. But if they know that no, whatever we try, whatever we do, these losses are accumulating and increasing day by day, so it is time to wind it up and pay off the people who have spent their money in the company, either through loan or through advances, or there are creditors with the company, whatever it is, let us put a stop at it. If they have to lose something, this should be the limit, right? So there is two different situations for going into the members voluntary winding up and the creditors voluntary winding up, right? Next, make a declaration of solvency. And in the creditors voluntary winding up, they don't have any need to make the declaration of solvency, right? So what is the declaration of solvency? It is a declaration that yes, we are solvent and yes, we can pay off all the debts and liability, if any. Otherwise, there are no debts, there are no liabilities for us to pay off, and we are in a good position to wind up the company. So it becomes the responsibility of the majority of directors of the company to declare that yes, we are solvent and we are capable, we qualify the bandwidth, we qualify the deadline for members voluntary winding up. We have enough surplus, we have enough fund, we have enough assets to pay off the debts and liabilities that we have, right? Or we have already settled them, we don't have any debts and liabilities, so it is very convenient for us to wind up voluntarily, right, without affecting the interest of any of the creditors or the providers of finance, right? Whereas in the case of creditors voluntary winding up, you do not need any declaration of solvency. Why? Because you yourself know that the company is not solvent. Because if the company was solvent, you would not have gone for creditors voluntary winding up. Why? Because you would want to earn the profit. Just because you know that the company will be accumulating losses in future, the company is not going anywhere, the company has no projections of making profit in the future, that is the reason why you go for creditors voluntary winding up. Hence the company is not solvent and you cannot give away the declaration of solvency. The next point of difference that you see is that in case of members voluntary winding up, it is only the meeting of the members that is conducted. So the members, they come, they hold the meeting, they decide the liquidator, they decide the procedure, and the liquidator goes on with the voluntary with the procedures of the voluntary winding up. Then they come, they again have a meeting, they see the accounts, okay, what have you done, then they submit it to the official liquidator, and finally the court dissolves the company. So it is only the member who is involved throughout the process of winding up along with the liquidator, right? And even that liquidator is appointed by the members themselves. But in case of creditors voluntary winding up, you have the meeting of both the members as well as the creditors, right? Why? Once you have the meeting of the members is where you decide that okay, we are winding up because of these situation, and they will also nominate a liquidator, but they do not appoint a liquidator. Why? Because appointment of liquidator is not entrusted on them. They are not entrusted with the power to appoint the liquidator, right? We have seen when we were discussing the creditors voluntary winding up that they will nominate a liquidator and the creditors will also nominate a liquidator. If both the liquidators are the same person, he would be appointed. But if there is a difference, then the liquidator appointed by the creditors would take over, right? That means you would reject the liquidator appointed by the members. And otherwise also you have seen that in any situation, if the member has appointed a liquidator and the creditors did not, that is the only place where the member's liquidator would take the position of the liquidator, right? Otherwise it is the creditor's liquidator who is always taking the position, or else the official liquidator from the court, right? The member's liquidator can again take the position if and only if there is the supervision of the court. So if the court passes on an order that yes, the member's liquidator will take away with the proceedings of the winding up, that is only when the member's liquidator can be placed. Otherwise it is the liquidator of the creditor who takes charge, right? The court can also provide with the official liquidator, right? We have seen all those provisions when we were discussing the creditors voluntary winding up. If anybody has any query, any issues with that, if the concept is not very clear, please go back to the lecture where we have discussed the creditors voluntary winding up, right? And once it is clear, you can come back to this distinction, and that is when the entire distinction will sink into your brain. So don't directly jump onto this lecture where we are discussing the distinction between the members and the creditors voluntary winding up. What you need to do first is understand what is members voluntary winding up and understand what is creditors voluntary winding up. Because once you go through those lectures and the concept of members voluntary winding up and the creditors voluntary winding up is clear in your head, it will help you to go ahead with understanding this distinction. And so, as per the discussion that we have done in the meeting of the members and the meeting of the members as well as the creditors, right, in both the situations, we understand that in the case of members voluntary winding up, the dominant position is held by the members. The dominant control is exercised by the members. Whereas in the case of creditors voluntary winding up, the dominant position is exercised by the creditors. Although the members are there, right? Even the members are the people who are holding the first meeting where they are discussing, yes, we need to wind up the company, right? But on the whole, if you see, the control of this category of winding up goes in the hands of the creditors. Why again? Because the company is not solvent, right? And the creditors are the people whose money is at stake, right? Members are the contributories, right? The creditors are the people who have lent their money to the company and they want it back, right? And if the company is not solvent, then they are sure that some of them will not be receiving the 100% amount that the company has to give, right? So in that case, they call the creditors voluntary winding up, and then they want that the voluntary winding up should proceed with the discretion, with the directions of the creditors, right? So that everybody is satisfied. At the end, if people are not getting it, they know that okay, we had held a meeting, and in that meeting we decided and we already knew that if somebody is going to lose, then it is us. Basically, who are they? They are the unsecured creditors, right? So you understand why have we given the control to the creditors in the case of creditors voluntary winding up? Yes. So next we have that the liquidator is appointed by the members in member voluntary winding up, and the liquidator is appointed by the creditors in creditor voluntary winding up, or the court, right? And we have already seen this concept while we were discussing the other topics of distinction. We have already discussed about the appointment of liquidator, right? In the members voluntary winding up, the member in their first meeting, when they decide that yes, they need to dissolve, they need to wind up the company, they pass the resolution, whether it is the ordinary resolution or the special resolution, depending upon the case. In that resolution itself, they appoint the liquidator as well, and they may appoint more than one liquidator if that is the demand, if that is the requirement of the company, if that is the requirement of the situation, right? And one more thing that we noticed over there is that they will also fix the remuneration of that liquidator in that meeting itself, which means they can neither delay the fixing of remuneration, nor can they inflate the remuneration anywhere further, right? So whatever remuneration is fixed today will be confirmed, and only then the liquidator will take charge of the office, right? And we have seen the rationale behind this concept. Why did this provision come up, right? If someone of you have missed it, refer back to those lectures where we have discussed it, the lecture of members voluntary winding up, right? But in the case of creditors voluntary winding up, the liquidators are either appointed by the creditors, they're nominated by both the members and the creditors, but they accept the liquidator who was appointed by the creditors and not who was appointed by the members, right? But if there is a conflict, if somebody goes to the court, the director, the contributory, the creditor, anybody, right, they're not satisfied with the liquidator who has come up to take away the procedures of winding up, that is the time when they approach the court, and court can decide otherwise. When I say the court can decide otherwise, then I mean that the liquidator who was nominated by the members may take charge now if the court thinks so, or may jointly take charge with the creditors liquidator, or both of them can be kicked out and the official liquidator would take charge, right? So it's all depending upon the discretion of the court and the application that has been made, the petition that had been filed, right? And that is filed by any director, any member, or any creditor who is not satisfied with the nomination or the appointment of the liquidator who has been confirmed for taking away the winding up procedures, right? Then you have that there is no need of a committee of inspection in the case of members voluntary winding up, whereas the committee of inspection is required in the case of creditors voluntary winding up. Now, we have in just the previous lecture, we have discussed in detail what is this committee of inspection, right? So you know that the committee of inspection basically is a committee which is formed with the collaboration of the creditors as well as the members. So in that committee, you have maximum 5 members from the creditors side and the 5 members from the contributory side, that is the member side, right? And these 10 members, that is the maximum, right? These group of members who have formed the committee will now supervise, will not actually supervise, will now put a check on the proceedings that are carried forward by the liquidator of the company, right? So if the liquidator is like selling away some assets, they need to see what is the rate at which you're selling it away. Is it the fair value? If it is paying off the liability, they again need to check whether that liability is paid off in order of preference, whether that was a priority. Is the liquidator breaking the order of preference anywhere? Is he giving any undue advantage to anybody? So all these things needs to be checked, right? So that is basically the function of the committee of inspection. But why do you think that the committee of inspection is required in creditors voluntary winding up only? That is because in members voluntary winding up, they are already solvent, right? So even if the liquidator is not going according to the preference, according to the priority of payment, even then there is no issue, because everybody would get the money, because the company is solvent. The company has enough cash to pay off all its liabilities and all its debt, right? So at the end of the day, everything rounds up to one position, that yes, everything is settled, right? But in creditors voluntary winding up, where there is insufficiency of fund, that is the place when things could go wrong, right? You have seen in audit also that risk of material misstatement comes up if there is some pressure, if there is lack of internal control, or the internal control which is available is not working. So this is actually the internal control that we are talking about, right? This is an activity of control that has been established in order to oversee the liquidation process, the winding up process, right? If you connect it to that ROMM over there, the risk of material misstatement, then you understand what is going on, and you understand the need. Where the risk is high, you will apply the internal controls that are strong, and where there is no risk, you may have a very lenient internal control or no internal control at all, right? So if you see, the degree of risk in the members voluntary winding up is very, very low as compared to the risk that is involved in the creditors voluntary winding up, right? So for that specific purpose, you have the committee of inspection involved in the creditors voluntary winding up, and you don't have them involved in the members voluntary winding up. And then when the committee of inspection has taken charge, when they have already come in, then we see that in case of creditors voluntary winding up, they are the people who fix the remuneration of the liquidator. It's either they or the creditors. But in case of the members voluntary winding up, they don't have any committee of inspection. So the whole and sole responsibility of fixing the remuneration of the liquidator lies in the hands of the members. Right? So this is basically the difference between the members voluntary winding up and the creditors voluntary winding up. So if anyway you get a question, or if you get to write about the members voluntary winding up or about the creditors voluntary winding up, whatever among these region, if you have a question, then this line of distinction, right, will help you a lot to understand and to go back to the correct position. Because when you have your questions, right, the questions are specifically based on some topics, on some points. Like the question will be based on the appointment of liquidator, or the appointment of the committee of inspection, the declaration of solvency, right, the control. So these kinds of things. So the questions basically, they are not a very general kind of a question that you get in the examination. Because in your law examination, the questions that you get are basically case studies. Right? And when you have a case study, there are these points that goes for a toss. That either the liquidator was appointed by the members in the creditors voluntary winding up, or there was no declaration of solvency given in case of members voluntary winding up, right? Or the remuneration in the case of creditors voluntary winding up was fixed by the member, right? Any of these situations can take place, whereby the distinction has to be very clear in your mind so that it is helpful for you to understand and take charge. Right? So when you go ahead with answering the questions over there, you will have to explain the entire provision. So for that, the lectures that we have taken in the members and the creditors voluntary winding up individually would be of help. Right? But to hit the question, to hit the answer, to get it right, to hit the bullseye, you will need to know the distinction. Because over here you know all the specific points that have been covered in the both the topics, right? That is the members voluntary winding up as well as the creditors voluntary winding up, right? So with the completion of this lecture, now I hope the entire concept, the entire field of action of the members voluntary winding up as well as the creditors voluntary winding up is clear in your mind, right? You know what is the specifications of the members voluntary winding up and what are the specifications of the creditors voluntary winding up. So please keep these 7 points in mind, and that will help you to solve all your answers relating to these topics in your examination, right? So what are those 7 points? Let us give a quick review to that. It is 1. The members voluntary winding up is taken up in the case of solvency when the company is solvent, and the creditors voluntary winding up is taken up in the situation when the company goes insolvent. Right? So when the company is solvent, in the members voluntary winding up, you also give away a declaration of solvency, right? But that declaration is not is not required in the creditors voluntary winding up because they are not solvent at all, right? So in the members voluntary winding up, as the name says, you hold the meeting of the members, right? And they have the dominant control. But in creditors voluntary winding up, although the name says that it's creditors voluntary winding up, but the meeting has to be called for both the members as well as the creditors. Because understand, without the involvement of the members, you cannot wind up a company. No outsider can come and straight away wind up the company, right? Otherwise, that would be a great threat on the company always. But in that situation also, the dominant position will be enjoyed by the creditors and not the members, right? Then we have that yes, the members, they appoint the liquidator because they have the dominant control. But in the case of creditors voluntary winding up, the liquidator is appointed by the creditor or the court, and we have seen the various cases over there, right? But remember, the members, they appoint the liquidator, but their liquidator is not, they nominate the liquidator, but their liquidator is not finally appointed, right? In the creditors voluntary winding up, you also need the involvement of the committee of inspection, and the committee of inspection will be considered or will be constituted with the members as well as the creditors, right, in the proportion, with maximum 5 members each, right? Whereas that committee of inspection is not required in the case of members voluntary winding up. And finally, the remuneration of the liquidator is fixed by the members because they have the dominant control and they are appointing the liquidator, and they have the control about everything in members voluntary winding up. But if you go to the creditor's voluntary winding up, that remuneration will be fixed either by the committee of inspection who has taken the charge of liquidation, or the creditors who is actually the supreme body in the creditor's voluntary winding up. Right? So that was the distinction between the members voluntary winding up and the creditors voluntary winding up, and with that we come to end of this lecture. Right? So in the next lecture we will start with the third phase, that is the winding up subject to the supervision of the court. Right? We have already covered in detail everything that relates to the compulsory winding up, the members voluntary winding up, and the creditors voluntary winding up. And the last procedure of winding up is the winding up by the supervision of the court, and that will be taken up in the next lecture. Right? So please stay tuned for that lecture, and until then, this is Abhinay Gupta signing off. Thank you. Bye bye.